Hello and welcome back, Doodle Crew mates, to another artist interview. Today, I am sitting down with the awesome and talented Sarah Will. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Hello.
Yay! I'm so happy to have you here. So the question I've been starting with everybody is, how did we meet?
You were in the first class I had at the Art Institute. And then you were in 3 more of my first classes at the Art Institute. And then you were in like all of my classes forever.
Yep. No, I think it's pretty funny for the way that we met and then started having classes together and then just never stopped having classes together. And out of everybody from the Art Institute Doodle Crew Weird Venn diagram crossover, I would say you're the only one that I specifically worked extensively with. So at the end of your tenure in the animation program, when you're going to get your degree, you work on a production project together. And Sarah and one other girl named Sarah were my 2 production mates when we were doing our final projects, which is crazy to think about.
And our production team name was Sarah Cubed because everyone would accidentally think that Emily's name was Sarah.
Yep. Consistently. Yeah, it was pretty good because again, like I think you and I have some similarities. Like we're both blonde, and we spent a lot of time together. And then the fact that we had another friend named Sarah, it made sense. And it tickles me now, but there would be times in class where people would go to reference a point that I had made or a question that I had asked, to be like, yeah, Sarah said that. And I remember one of our teachers even calling out, like, do you mean Emily? She's not Sarah, but yeah. That's okay. I didn't mind being Sarah for a few years. Okay.
I was called Emily once.
Yeah, it didn't seem to work back the other way for some strange reason. I think that was because there were 2 Sarahs and only one Emily. I'm also thinking maybe with my last name being Swan, maybe that was part of it, but who knew? Also, it answers the next question, which I've been asking everybody. Yes, Sarah is an AIP alum. Specifically, like I think other than me graduating 1 quarter ahead of you, we pretty much started and finished at the same time.
Yep. So because I took a quarter off and it was like the next to the last quarter and I had like 2 classes the following quarter. So
yeah,
we just finished. Why didn't I?
Yeah. But I also sit there and I'm like, why didn't I take a quarter off? I clearly needed it. It would have helped. But I was just like, no, gotta finish. Yeah. So just craziness. But going on to your own personal art journey, how long have you been making art?
As long as I can remember. I pulled out some art because my mom always dates art, and I have art in my possession right now that's from when I was 7. I know she has some that's earlier than that, but these were more representational art. Like I will have to find my perfect horse that I drew in 1st grade for you because it's amazing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I think there was a piece I drew that I remember my dad telling me about because I don't actually remember it. But it was a landscape and it had 3 unicorns on it. And there was a big one, a medium, and a small one. And apparently the teacher asked me about that. I was like, oh, is the big one the daddy and this? And I was like, no, the big one's the baby. And the teacher's like, well, why is the littlest one the biggest? I was like, oh, because it's the closest to you. And it cracks me up now because I was like, well, apparently my tiny brain understood perspective. I just didn't know it was called perspective. Just I would see the horses out in the field and be like, well, that's how they look. So that's what I drew. Yeah, the little kid art is something ridiculous and special. And yeah, I love it. It's so fun. So now that we are no longer little kids, but we're still making art, is art your primary job or career?
It is. I am a multimedia designer for the Partnership in Education for the University of Duquesne in Pittsburgh. It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. So what does that entail for what you do?
It's kind of a catch-all term. Usually it's video and graphics and things they can put on their website, but it ranges to, any piece of art you need, I'm the art person. I'm doing that art. Sometimes game design. Sometimes. It could be anything. I'm kind of at the whim of my boss, who's like kind of a nebulous thinker, and he'll be like, "We have grant money. It needs to cover this thing. Can you make this a thing?" And I'm like, "Sure. I've never done
Sure.
this before, but I guess I'm doing it now."
Well, and I think it is something I have found not just in my own personal life, but with talking with a lot of other artist friends, that while we have specialties that we are good at, there's also being able to teach ourselves other art or use things that kind of branch off of our main tree of art. You know, you end up kind of being a catch-all, because if you don't specifically know how to do it, there's a pretty good chance you can teach yourself how to do it, which also makes you more valuable, but then frequently means it makes you work more. But
Yes.
now, as far as I know, because I know you, I also know you work on a lot of your own personal projects. So talk a little bit about all of the things you do outside of your, of say, career, but that are also your full-time art career.
I have 3 comics that I produce regularly. Steel City Moon, um, What Remains, and True Sun. So 3 web comics that I 1 page per week for Steel City Moon. The other 2 rotate, so it's bi-weekly for them, every other Monday. Then I'm also part of a game dev group, and we've been making supplementary 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons products, which we're releasing on the Dungeon Masters Guild. So we have the first thing we released is called A Stay at the Ursa Manor, which is a whodunit one-shot for like low-level play, which will be sending out an update probably in about a month or 2.
Okay.
We made a bunch of playable races for 5th edition, and then the second one-shot, which is a sequel to the first, called Booze in the Bottle Forge, BOOS, which is also a mystery, but more of the Scooby-Doo variety than like an Agatha Christie mystery.
Yes.
Which we're hoping to finish up the end of July so that it can be released with their writer's workshop that happens every year.
Awesome. That's very, very cool. But, and again, literally since I've known you, you've always had a million things going. I think it's a lot of why we got along so well, because we're just like, but I want to do all the things and all the art things and do them more. So when it comes to that and your art, how did you kind of find your way into what you consider your niche, either in style or in projects?
By accident, 100% by accident. I was at portfolio review at graduation, which is just a big tri-fold board that shows your work. And I had my business cards ready, and I'm like, some CEO of some company is going to walk up and hire me, and it's going to be great. And toward the end of portfolio review, this guy who looked a lot like a hobo was wearing like a hoodie and a jean jacket and had a huge beard. And he just like looked at my stuff for a really long time and was kind of asking me questions, but I kind of ignored him because I was like, who is this hobo? Like, you should get out of here. You're scaring away potential real people. And after a while, he turns around, hands me a business card, and says, I like your stuff. Do you want to come make video games with us? And I ended up interning at Electric Owl Studios, like starting the following week. And through Electric Owl, I got a job at SimCoach Games doing game art and game design. And then that kind of branched off into also doing medical illustrations and animations sometimes. And then when I was laid off at SimCoach and had to find a new job, and I just was like, I can do all these things. Someone hire me. And a company out here who does, how to describe it, soft skills training for leaders in companies. So how a boss should speak to their employees,
Mm-hmm.
which is surprisingly hard for some people. Like,
It is. It absolutely is. And I mean, I've talked at length on other shows I'm a part of about how being a manager and managing people is absolutely a skill. And it's a skill that a lot of people don't have. And to kind of work together with that. I think it's the application of animation in stuff like that people don't always think about, that someone has to design those infographics, those moving things that take you through all of this. Like, that is the work of a designer, of an animator. And it's not what people immediately assume when you mention animation, but it's an important and valuable thing that has a need.
Yep. And I went to that interview and I was super nervous, and everyone seemed really serious. They're like, this is a serious company. We're doing serious things. And I'm like, I just need someone to give me money. I want art. Apparently I was the only person who came in and like wore a suit. Like, I wore a lady's nice suit.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're the only person that like dressed up and acted like you were at an interview. So I guess artists aren't good at interviewing.
I can believe it.
One of the people on the interview team saw that I was an Art Institute alumni, and he was like, oh man, I went to the Art Institute. We got to hire her. So for as many people who have said the AIP name is trashed now, it works for me.
Hey, that's a win.
But I was doing educational animation for them. And right before the pandemic, my friend who was in the chat earlier, she was like, how much would it take for you to stop working for that company and come work for us? And I'm like, I like the stability of this other company. I don't know, like, if I would be making as much. And I was like, let me see if I can swing both jobs. A month later, the pandemic hit, and I went, hey, what job offers still stand? Instantaneously, I went from one job into the next, and now I make educational animations for Duquesne University.
That's awesome. No, that's a huge win. And what you said about the Art Institute, whenever I talk about it, because no matter what ended up happening to our school, I still received a degree. I still completed the course to get a degree. You can't take that away from me. But also, the big thing that I talk about is I'm very pleased and happy with the education that I got from the professors themselves. Like, I learned a lot about art, even if it ended up being art I didn't end up using. But also, I learned a lot about what I needed as a student and how I needed to kind of approach things as an artist, which I will absolutely admit I didn't start to put into practice until maybe 5 years out of school. But that stuff was still important. And as we've talked on Doodle Crew streams, there are things that they taught us in school that are still valuable things. There's some PTSD mixed in there, but there is value in that. And I'm a better artist because I went through the education that I did. So, I'm very critical of the business side of it, because obviously they weren't doing things on the up and up, or the school would still exist. But that had nothing to do with, the professors that we had and the people. And I think some of it ended up being, I was able to get a lot out of it that I'm happy with, and I'll take that. Even though it was a weird time in our lives. So, talking about all those different projects that you've done, either through your professional career or your personal career, what is a project that you're really proud of?
I thought about this question a lot, but I'm just going to go with the most recent that I'm super proud of, and it's I'm working on animations to support a grant about stress, anxiety, and pain. And we did a video that is just a technique to stop a panic attack, basically. And it's called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. And I made this animation, and I was like, we did no advertising for it. And we're like, when all the animations for this are done, we'll do a big bulk release. And it went out on YouTube, and people just started randomly finding it. And I think it has like 16,000 views, and we've done no advertising. And
that's huge.
And I know that it's out there helping people, and it's just something that took me I think 2 weeks from start to end, and it was just a quick little project, and it's the most recent thing that I'm proud of.
Yeah. And I think that is something that is incredibly relatable to all of us, and so many people inside and outside of the art world. But as someone who now exists on the internet and has to deal with algorithms, knowing that it's being found and shared without promotion, without, the perfect hashtag, that is still finding a place and getting views, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
So that's really, really awesome. So as we talked about different projects and different things that you do, you work in a lot of different mediums, even still to this day, I think more than many of the other people I know. So out of all of the crazy art that you make, what is a medium that you really, really love working in?
I still hand drawn. Like there's nothing that's going to beat the feeling of my hand holding a pencil and having it touch paper. Like I like feeling the tooth of paper.
Yeah.
Though I thought about this question, I was like, does Emily mean using in real life? Because I would totally just say stop motion animation. And as a medium I love.
Yes. Nope. That's absolutely fair.
But one that I actually use.
Yeah. No, I have such deep and amazing appreciation for stop motion animation. I don't have the patience nor the skills to do it. So that is one where I just sit back and enjoy it because holy cow, it's magic. Yeah. And I love watching the behind the scenes where they're doing the real time sped up footage of people actually moving it and animating it. And you're watching the human move the character. And it's so cool. It's so cool.
They show all the little faces because they switch out the faces.
Yep.
And they're just like, here is the giant plate of faces. And
yep.
It's like that's a lot of work to make 150 faces.
Mm-hmm. Because that's how you have to do a lip sync or, change it. Like, and I always go back to, I think because it is one of the more well-known ones in the public conscious, and that's Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, they're not just matching a lip sync, they're matching songs, they're matching timing, and you're getting all of these very exaggerated characters doing very exaggerated things. Like I always think of when Jack like pulls his mouth open to scare, like all these different faces that you had to build because you want these characters to be so multidimensional. It's sorcery. So along that, what is a medium that scares you or intimidates you?
The same answer, stop motion. Because I understand how animation works. But that is straightforward animation.
Yep.
And there's no erasing or going back. You just animate an entire scene and then hope that the hours you spent on it worked out. And I'm like, that I get tight in the chest and there's no flipping to test to see if it like
yes, so much that. So quick sidebar for anybody who didn't literally go to animation school with us. There are many ways to animate, but what Sarah's saying is straightforward. So straightforward is very much like you would make like a little flip book in your math book where you're just drawing one picture at a time and it is moving progressively. Whereas what we did a lot of was keyframe animation. So you would have one pose and another pose, and then you could work on the drawings in between, called in betweens, to work up to it. And that's very much how my brain works. I can work on like pose to pose. I can understand the timing that it takes to get from one pose to the next, how many drawings that's going to be. But with straightforward, it's exactly like that. Like I have so much trouble thinking about how I would time that, how I would do that. I can't go back and add frames in because I'll never get that character back in the same position. And
just a walk cycle. And
yeah.
Like
nope. Nope. Again, something that we have studied, we understand how it works, cannot actually practically apply out of our brains. Yeah, though it always makes me feel better when you say that because you are such a talented animator. And I was like, is it really just me? Am I the one who just doesn't understand how this works? Like, nope, it's sorcery. So when you're working on your projects and doing all these different things, how do you end up working through if you've gotten into a slump with your art? Either, is a slump at work or a slump on your comics, or I know you also do like needlepoint and all of these other cool art things. How do you work through that?
I think it's having a bunch of different projects that I can pick up that are completely different from the other. It kind of helps. Like what I do at work isn't exactly what I'm doing for my comics. And like you said, I do cross stitch, and sometimes I'll just go out and draw something dumb. Or doing Doodle Crew has been a a big help because I don't just draw something that pops into my head anymore. I think about it for a long time. I do thumbnails. I do a storyboard. I'm not just organically creating something out of nowhere from a prompt anymore. So I think doing little things like that, like shaking it up and not thinking, well, I have to finish this project before I can move on to something else, because sometimes that'll take forever, or you might not finish it at all because you just get into that like, oh, I don't want to do this right now. I'd rather clean my room. I clean my room instead of sitting down and doing half an hour's worth of cleanup on this art.
Yep.
And it just helps me to have other things to just pick up and be like, I just don't want to ink this page for my comic. Oh, I have 2 other comics I'm working on. I'll go sketch the next page for this one and just kind of do a few sketches. And then I'm like, all right, I do really need to do this inking. I feel less bad about this inking now.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something interesting about a process that I don't do as much now as an adult and in my art career, but there was something about even creating art in high school where it was okay if at a certain point you decided to abandon a project. Like if you had put time and energy into it, but it's just not working and you need to step away and work on something else. I think holding on to, I have to finish this before I can do anything else, completely stops you from getting to rest your brain and create something different, or even get a better idea and come back to it fresh. So yeah, having that ability to switch between mediums, but also helping. So helpful. Thank you. Uh, uh, just work your creative muscle in a different way, which I think is really nice. And I know, like, so I don't cross stitch, and I'm envious of yours. I have many of your amazing cross stitch pieces in my house, but I know for a while I was making like friendship bracelets, which is just repeatedly tying knots on a thing. But it is such a calming, nice, mindless thing where I'm still paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm still counting, essentially stitches and stuff like that. But it is tactile, so it's using my hands, it's letting my brain rest, and I could do it while I watch TV. And it was just a fun thing. And if I was feeling stressed about my art, it was an escape from that, which was really nice. So well, I'm glad. I'm gonna, again, it's always my shameless plug about what you like about Doodle Crew, but just I'm so happy you agreed to join me. I have obviously loved creating art with you for what, 15 years now? Yeah, I know. It's insane. So the fact that you said yes and were willing to join, it was just, I was so thrilled. So it's been such a blast having you and getting to kind of, I equate it to, none of us, aside from being in school and in class and working on our projects, we didn't ever get to all be in a studio together. We didn't work for the same company. We weren't all together creating art once we got out of school. And I missed that because these were, you and Randall and a lot of these other people were people I loved being in school with and being in, as close as we ever got to being in a studio together. And so it's not the same, but it's close. And it's been really nice. So a big thank you for coming and hanging out and doing that with me. And
of course.
Yeah. And it's fun. There's a very chaotic energy to artists in a studio together, and we found even when that's virtual, it's still there. But I know it's something that I keep talking about in the interviews with. There is an energy and kind of a magic to that, just all different artistic ideas floating around and grabbing different ones, be like, that's a weird thing, I'm gonna draw it. So, which I think is a pretty good summation of my art career. That's a weird thing, I'm going to draw it. But so if people, go ahead.
Oh, to answer the question, what I like about Doodle Crew is that a lot of the things I do art-wise are for projects, and they're not just a standalone piece. It's like, I need to work on 3 pages for this comic, or it's like everything is part of something bigger. But for the Doodle Crew, it's like, here's a little nugget, and I'm going to work on it for a day or 2, and that's it. And there's something so like refreshing about, I can be creative, and it can just be. I can still do that, and the Doodle Crew gives me that chance to just like, oh, I'm going to do something really goofy, and it doesn't matter that it's all by itself and it's just a thing. I'm not working on a series of art pieces that like they all have to match and they all have to look cohesive. It's nope,
Yep.
this is this one silly thing, and when it's done and it's out
Yep.
there, and that's freeing to me.
Yes, it is exactly freeing, and it is letting yourself off the hook for for this one day, if this silly thing doesn't work, it's okay, because it's not, a pivotal moment in my comic. It's not an important animation that I have to get done for work. It's just a silly thing. And yeah, no, I think we need that. I think we need that silliness outlet. I know I do. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. So if people want to see more of your awesome art, find you, follow you, support you, where can they do that? Where can they get a hold of you?
Tumblr and my website, which I should probably update. And I should probably do Instagram, maybe someday. Right now, it's just pictures of my cat. I really want to see pictures of my cat, but
Well, I know a bunch of us have always talked when it comes to being an artist on the internet nowadays that the posting and tagging and being social in that way is a whole separate job on top of the art that we're creating. Like they are two separate things, and you have to dedicate time to doing that. And I know there are times where I don't want to dedicate time to doing that because I'm like, I'd rather create and not post and schedule posts and tag things. And so it's a very, it works side by side, but it, one outweighs the other as far as fun and what I want to do.
I feel like until I make it a chore, then I won't do it. If it's just like, oh, I should have this. Like I didn't have a website until I was laid off, and I'm like, shoot, I have to put all of my work somewhere so someone can see it.
Yep.
I better take 4 days. It took me 4 days. And only like 2 or 3 hour chunks of a day. So altogether, the equivalent of 1.5 days of work to actually get a functioning website. And I'm like, why did I put this off? Because I didn't make it a chore. It was like, yeah, I should have one.
Yep. And I think circling back to, at least for me, what Doodle Crew forces me to do is it's a specific date and time. And I know that on this date and time, I have to show up no matter what I'm feeling, no matter what. Like, nope, you got to be there and you got to draw. And that's it. But yeah, until there's a deadline, until there's that hard, like, this is a thing you have to do, it can kind of just live in that amorphous space of, I should.
I need deadlines. I need that cut off. Like,
yep. I need consequences if I don't finish something.
It gives me priorities. I can then put a list of, okay, this deadline's first. I need to be here for Doodle Crew, so I need to prep for that. My next milestone for game development is here, and I stack my work in the order of when it needs done.
Yep. No, and it's so funny to me because, and it's great. And I hope that people who watch this interview series will see it with a bunch of different artists. But a common thread is we can be very analytical. We can be very list driven, very deadline driven, and kind of type A in our focus on all of that, despite then having what I count as like the crazy scribble art side. But I think in order to make it work and make the crazy art side, like, just funnel that into a focus thing, like a to-do list of my deadlines is a lifesaver. And it is the only reason that I can keep myself on task sometimes, because I could just do all the things. But I was like, no, you have to do this first, and then you have to do this. Then we can go crazy.
Yep.
So here for all the lists. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. Also, just thank you for being my friend for the last 15 years. That's been awesome. I'm so happy, but I'm so happy to have you along with us, and especially through the pandemic when I wasn't able to come down and visit you like normal and get to do art with you. Like, it was very cool to have a little bit of that back, and yeah, just get to be art friends again. So that's awesome. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.